Thank you very much for that introduction. Set this here so I can spill it. So I have good news. I'm not going to talk for an hour up here. And because we're a smaller group, I encourage you, as I'm going through the presentation, if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand, and I'm happy to answer questions as we go along. Otherwise, I'm hoping that you'll have some questions as we get to the end of the presentation. So it's nice to be back here at Wayne State. As Professor Winter said, I'm a graduate of this university, and I've lived in this neighborhood for 12 years now, and so I'm really happy to be here. But I have to say, when I was a law student, I never could have imagined that I would be here giving a talk on design. But I guess these days I like to think of myself as a design advocate, and feel that my background is still really helping me to do an effective job in that role. So I'm part of Design Corps, which is an economic development organization that's focused on championing the design economy in Detroit. We're part of College for Creative Studies, and we provide business support for designers to help grow their business and connect to new buyers. We host a number of different events that are all about really elevating the profile of design and showing all the different ways in which it takes form in our city through our monthly networking event, Dreams by Design, as well as September, which is programmed as the Month of Design. And on top of that, I represent Detroit in the UNESCO Creative Cities Network as the first and only city of design in the United States. And if I guess I could say thank you to President Trump, we will be the only city of design for the near future, because no other American cities are going to be allowed in the network anytime soon until we rejoin UNESCO. But fortunately, the rest of us are still there, and now more than ever, I feel really lucky to be part of this global network, to have this relationship with other cities around the world, because I think cities really are at the forefront of pushing a lot of the issues, of testing new policies, and that we have a lot to learn and gain from one another. And it's a really special opportunity for Detroit to be part of this network. So I mentioned that I am in this role as UNESCO City of Design Coordinator. And when I tell people that, a lot of people ask, what the hell is UNESCO? What does that mean? What is the City of Design Network? And so essentially, we are one of 31 cities around the world that have been designated as a City of Design, because we have a unique strategy for how design is really driving equitable development in our city and hopefully around the world. There are actually 7 different creative fields in the UNESCO network. So on top of design, there's also film, gastronomy, literature, craft and folk art, media arts, and there are 180 cities that are all sort of thinking about the role of creativity in terms of policy and strategy. A lot of people know UNESCO through the World Heritage Sites. So there's this idea that physical places have cultural significance, they contribute to a city's authentic identity, and so the Creative Cities Network takes that idea and applies it to intangible culture. This network was formed in 2004 and has grown really rapidly, but it's really exciting to be part of this new model for exchange and thinking no longer about nations, but really cities being the sort of platform for which we communicate. So each city in the network has a really unique approach to how but ultimately we're all focused on improving life for people in cities through design. So when you apply, you have to show that your city has a legacy of design, you have to show that it's an important part of your economy right now, but most important, it's really about what your vision is for the future and how you're going to use design over a 10-year period to really drive equitable and sustainable development. In Detroit, we really believe that inclusive design specifically is the key to a healthier, happier city. So inclusive design is this idea that you really put people who are typically considered at the margins and put them in the center of your design process, and that this will ultimately lead to the development of better products, systems, and services that are not only built to last, they're really built to serve everyone. Fundamentally, this means that we are asking 2 questions when it comes to design: who participates and who benefits? So it's not just about the final outcome, but it's about the design process itself. To borrow an example from Kat Holmes' book Mismatch, she references fighter pilots during World War II. When they were developing the cockpits for these planes, they measured the physical dimensions of 1,000 different pilots and created the perfect average and designed the cockpit around this perfect average. And yet they were experiencing a high number of fatalities, and they were trying to figure out why. And so they looked at the dimensions of the cockpits, and they went back and tried to figure out, well, how many people does this cockpit actually fit? Guess how many people's dimensions were the perfect average of the 1,000 people that they used? 0. Not a single person is this idea of the average. And so that's where you get this idea of adjustable seats and adjustable seat belts. And this idea that if you design something that can accommodate a wide variety of users, ultimately you end up with a better product at the end of the day. So you may have a better idea what I mean at this point, and it may be still really vague, but what I want to do is give you a specific idea of what I think this looks like in a Detroit context, and then provide a little bit more background to how Detroit became a city of design, and why specifically we're really banking on inclusive design.
The whole building in total is about 12,000 square feet. We bought this building almost 8 years ago for $500. The long-term vision that we would not only have a space for our programs to run out of, but we could do something that was really transformational in our community, especially it being on such a very historic corridor that is Ninth Avenue. After we bought the building, there were always ideas and hopes of how can we use this space to be the most beneficial to our community. And what sprung out of that was a coffee shop and laundromat and community space and literacy space and a little bit of everything.
We worked with map development to identify one of the most important things being that whatever we add to the neighborhood has a wow value. It is marking its place in the city. People in the neighborhood were coming by to ask what was going on. And so it was really exciting to be able to tell them that this development group is committed to being here, and they're proving it by investing in the building and putting value back into the building itself.
You can have nice things in the neighborhoods, you can have thriving businesses, you can have high design. It doesn't just limit itself to a downtown location or a midtown, but these can happen in the neighborhood. Sometimes it takes a little longer, sometimes it takes a little bit more investment and creativity, but it can be done, and I think people have really responded well to that.
So we'll come back to the comments again towards the end of this presentation. But for now, we're going to go back to 2015, December 11th, when Detroit was officially named UNESCO City of Design. So there were a lot of headlines, a lot of news, a lot of excitement, but also a lot of confusion and questions. People were wondering what this was. Was it a trophy, some prize that Detroit won? When was our giant check with a bunch of money arriving? Again, not even knowing what UNESCO was in the first place. And also, just this idea of being a city of design, I think raised a lot of questions, and people had some legitimate concerns about what this was really about and who it was for. Design typically is not affiliated with equity and inclusion and sustainability. It's considered elite, and it's considered expensive buildings and watches. And so we realized that there was a lot that we had to do to really, reframe this idea about what the role of design is in our city and in cities more broadly. But in a practical sense, there were some things that we did know for certain about what this meant. It meant that we were part of this global network of cities that are really looking to learn from one another. And so we get together, we share best practices, we collaborate on projects, we participate in each other's events, and ultimately this is really about a global platform for all of our design community to be showcased around the world. It's a really fun, really diverse group of people who come from all different backgrounds. But despite everything you read in the news about other people and other countries, they're actually really friendly and really wanting to work together. And again, I can't stress enough how special I think it is that Detroit gets to participate in this. So we were new to the network, and we knew that while we had a lot in common, we still also ultimately had to figure out what this really means specifically for Detroit to be a city of design. Each city has to figure out what this means in their own local context. And while we did have a lot in common, our one major difference is that our initiative is not run by city government. So almost every other UNESCO City of Design, it is held by a department within city government. It's a very top-down strategy. They get government funding to do their work. And in Detroit, none of those things apply to us. So that comes as a challenge, but we also felt like it came as an opportunity for us to show what a different model could look like for really activating this designation. We knew that what we wanted to accomplish was far beyond what Design Corps ourselves could really do or should do, and that we needed to build partnerships with local government, with industry, with the local design community, and the broader Detroit community overall in order to really activate this. But in order to do that, we really needed to bring people together through a common vision around what our values and our vision should be. Values were really important for us to articulate so that there was a common understanding among the people who were participating, and we needed a vision to know where we were going long term and what we wanted to achieve. So we started by really bringing people together at first, and we really focused on bringing together people who are not typically in the room together. Our first City of Design Summit was hosted in 2016 at the Jam Handy, and we had faculty, industry, government officials, but we also specifically invited residents. We had a large group of students from Henry Ford Academy High School in the room, and we forced people to sit next to people they'd never met before and to have conversations about design outside of their own sort of personal worldview. We talked about what it really means to have cities work for people and understood that all of these words can have a lot of different interpretations, and that's okay. We also had an opportunity really early on to really showcase Detroit design on a global platform. One of the very first things that happened when we got the designation is we were invited by Saint-Étienne, France to be the guest city of honor at their International Design Biennale. This was an incredible opportunity, but I have to say, if we had any idea what we were agreeing to do at the time, we never would have gone through it because it was really expensive and complicated, but it was totally worth it. It was an amazing opportunity to see 70 people from Detroit go over to France and be treated just like, celebrities, basically. We had a group of 10 musicians who were there who played shows for a month. There was a group of urban farmers there. So again, I think it really showcased that design in Detroit takes a lot of different forms, and that it also is about reflecting the other elements of our local culture that make us unique, like urban farming or like music. In 2017, once we had gone through this experience, then we were really ready to develop an action plan. And so we spent 6 months working really closely with a group of about 1,000 different people to develop an action plan. This for us meant really getting an understanding of who and what makes up Detroit's design economy, and for us understanding that it doesn't just mean professional designers, but also what are all the different industries that are immediately connected to design. So architects need woodworkers, and industrial designers need contract drafters, and so the design economy actually touches a much wider group of people who could benefit from investments in design. At the end of the day, very early on in the process, we felt like it was really important before we even defined our strategy for us to define our values. And so through our public events, through smaller workshops, we did a participatory design process to establish 3 values that would really guide Detroit in our work. And so those values are diverse experiences, accessible opportunities, and collaborative relationships. I put the wrong word there. But we created a booklet early on in the process to talk about what these values mean and to give specific examples for all types of people, whether you're a high school student or a local business owner, to think about how to really bring these values and put them into action. And at the end of the day, we never really forgot what we were trying to accomplish. Really understanding what the good life is and thinking about how more people can experience that and benefit from that. We're excited to see the development happening in Detroit, but we also really want to make sure that people who have been here for a long time, Detroiters, are benefiting from that development also. And so design has an obligation to really think about building cities that really work for people and make everybody feel welcome and invited. So after this process, we launched our action plan. Our overall vision was really about inclusive design to drive inclusive growth. And we felt that if we focused on developing diverse design talent for tomorrow, investing in design and seeing design investments in our communities, and supporting progressive policies around design, that Detroit could really be known as a global hub for the practice of inclusive design. As we think about our design legacy in the 20th century, we are proud of a lot of our accomplishments, but we also realize a lot of the consequences from us approaching design not in an inclusive way. So when we look at our region in terms of segregation or sprawl or sustainability, we are concerned about this need to really change our approach to design and redefine what it means in a 21st century context. And when we launched this action plan, we did not do it alone. We felt like it was really important that before we start anything new and do any new initiatives, we first validate the good work that's already happening in the city. So when we developed our plan, we put out a call and invited anyone who had a project that aligned with our strategic areas and that aligned with our values to be part of the City of Design initiative. So we have 50 different partners who are working on 62 different projects that exemplify inclusive design. These partners range from different departments within city government to architects who are concerned about the lack of young Detroiters who are pursuing careers in architecture, to lawyers who are thinking about how youth can be engaged through design thinking workshops to advocate for criminal justice reform. Our point is that design takes all different shapes and sizes, and that it really is a strategy that could be implemented. And I would say beyond that, in Detroit communities, I think people have been practicing inclusive design for a very long time, and that we really want this work to validate that. So now we had our local network, so then we were really ready to engage with the global network and really take advantage of these opportunities for collaboration. And one of the very first cities that we collaborated with was our friendly Canadian neighbors to the north, Montreal. If you've ever been to Montreal, this city really exemplifies the good life, and they really use design to make sure that people enjoy their experience where they live and work and spend free time. They really think about using design in the public space to really make things more engaging and interactive. So this is an example of a public design competition they did to activate a bus stop. They give away grants to local designers to design furniture for these public spaces. But rather than creating a traditional bus stop, they created these musical swings. There's no real audio, you can't hear it now, but you maybe remember seeing some of these swings in Detroit a couple of years ago, downtown. So once the designers tested it in Montreal, they then scaled it up, and now this design is traveling around the world. So by investing in their own designers, they become this place that's known for good public design, and I find that really inspirational. I'm also inspired by the way they use design to really communicate with their citizens, recognizing how design can be a tool to alleviate some of the consequences of day-to-day city activity. So they have a uniform system for construction across the city, and they use signage and communication design to explain what's happening in this neighborhood, to encourage people to come and continue to visit the shops, and basically help more people understand what's happening in their community. Another way that they support local business is through their Commerce Design Awards. And I think that this program, to me, was really exciting because the idea is giving awards to business owners who work with professional designers to show that for any business at any type of budget, design can be an important tool to make your business successful, to make it feel inclusive and welcoming, and to make your business competitive in the long run. As we're seeing commercial corridors redevelop in Detroit, I thought that this might be a really great way for us to think about how to make sure that as businesses are developing, that they reflect our local identity, that they feel welcoming to the people who are here in the city now, and that you create this ripple effect. Because while it is about design, ultimately at the end of the day, this is about investment in brick and mortar businesses in neighborhoods in Detroit. So it seemed like a great idea. I was excited about it, but I knew that in order to pull it off, I needed to get buy-in from our local partners here. So we took a group of those partners to Montreal, including people from the planning department, the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation, and our partners at AIA Detroit. And we visited a lot of the winners of their Commerce Design Awards. And we saw how these businesses were able to create really incredible, beautiful spaces with very low-cost materials. And so it really hammered home this idea that it doesn't have to be flashy and expensive to be interesting and unique. The other thing that was inspiring about these local businesses is the way that they really catered to pedestrian traffic, and were really trying to use design to create a sort of street culture there. So their signs are not really geared toward the road. They're too small to see if you drive by. These signs are really meant to attract pedestrians to walk in, grab a baguette, and then sit in the seating area that they've created outside the space. So this really has a transformational effect on commercial corridors in the city. So once again, we were excited, but at the same time, we were worried, would this work in Detroit? We recognize that a lot of our small businesses have really, really small budgets. And while we did want to award the businesses that were making these investments, we also wanted to make sure that there was a good pipeline and that we were reaching out to other businesses to give them the tools so that they could do this too. So we invited our friends from Montreal back to Detroit in 2017, and we hosted a workshop with a number of our economic development partners and designers to talk about all the different ways in which design impacts a small business. And through that work and all of these different perspectives coming together, we were able to develop a design guide for neighborhood businesses that actually helps break down all the different facets of design to think about, from marketing and branding to that street presence. And we now work with our partners to get these books in the hands of business owners across the city. So one of our partners over at TechTown, SWAT City, works with existing brick and mortar businesses, providing educational support for them. So every person who goes to that curriculum gets a copy of this workbook. With the DEGC's Motor City Math program, they've given away over $6 million in the past 3 years to redevelop formerly vacant commercial spaces all over the city and get new businesses into those spaces. And for every business that goes through that program, they get a copy of our workbook. And our designers teach their actual design workshops to people who are going through the process. And as a result, we are ready to launch the award program in Detroit.
More than anything, what we want for people across our city to feel like design is for them.
This design award is different from any other architecture awards in the respect that it's not just looking at the aesthetic of the business. It's about how to connect with the community, what it looks like from the street, what kind of impact it has on the neighborhood in which it exists.
It is not about the elite, it's about quality, it's about design integration, and it's about the teamwork between the designers and the owners.
So last October, we had our first design awards, and we were thrilled to give away 37 awards to recognize in 10 different projects. So we gave awards both to the business owners, but all of the designers who worked on their projects as well. We want people we know why we like a certain space in the city, but we want people to know the people who are behind that work. We want to really celebrate these investments. Some of our winners included Cuzzo's, which is located up on Livernois. I grew up in a neighborhood a lot like this in Northwest Detroit, and I really can't tell you what it means to see a facade open up and to see windows with bars, but to see the bars disappear from windows, and to be able to walk into a place and sit down and have a meal and you don't have to order through bulletproof glass. To say that neighborhoods like Livernois deserve that kind of commercial activity, I think was really significant. And so we really wanted to celebrate Ron's investment and the ripple effect that it's had in that community. We also recognized House of Pure Bin, which is another really incredible project. And what we loved about this one is it is owned by 3 African-American entrepreneurs, 3 women who, even with very limited budget, recognize the importance in investing in design from the very beginning. What's exciting about these programs is these small businesses have small budgets, but it's a special opportunity for young designers to get some of their first contracts. And so we believe that this independent design community and our independent small business community can really lift each other up. So with incredibly low-cost materials, these are just cardboard tubes that they store all their wine in. And they use cork to really deck out the place, which is also a low-cost material. I think it really is a great role model to show people that this is possible. And finally, our friends at the Commons again. This project to me is one of the most exciting things I've seen in Detroit and frankly anywhere, because I think that the result of this project really exemplifies inclusive design in action. When map development initially came to LAVU, they said we need renderings, and LAVU said renderings for what? They knew that they needed their office, but what was the rest of the building going to be? And so LAVU worked with map development to actually engage the entire neighborhood in the planning process and to ask them what they wanted to see in the building. And as a result, you have this space that accommodates a coffee shop and a laundromat and a community event space and a children's literacy program on top of map development's offices. To me, that is a revolutionary idea about, I'm going to finish just one thought and then I'll entertain questions, but I think this is just a really revolutionary idea about what the future of business looks like, and I think it's a really radical idea about what the future of community development organizations look like. To say that you can actually make a difference in terms of having a place where people could come and gather together in a community. And it really exemplifies these values that I referenced earlier. They never would have built a space that looked like this without all these diverse perspectives contributing to it. unless they were really focused on making these types of opportunities accessible to their local community, we would still have this idea that you can only have a nice coffee shop downtown, or that, that you can't have a business that has windows that aren't, covered in bars. And finally, this would have been possible without the power of collaborative relationships. And so, to me, that really is what inclusive design is about, and that's what Detroit City of Design is about. So, thank you. So, if you want more information, you can check out our website, designcore.org. We have a number of open calls right now. September is our month of design, but if you want to be involved, our applications are all due April 14th. So if you want to host a youth workshop, if you want to apply for our city design competition, if you want to just volunteer, please check us out and get involved. We're going to be releasing the one-year report of activity for our city design partners on the anniversary of our launch next Thursday at MoCo. So that our Drinks by Design event is free and open to the public. You just have to register. But I strongly encourage you to come check out this event, to check out our report, and to continue to follow us and stay involved. So, thanks.
I just want to ask, where is the Commons?
Oh,
Where is it?
the Commons is at Mac and Van Dyke.
Man,
Yeah, so it's not technically Island View. It's north of the Villages. So Mac and Van Dyke, essentially. I hope that's not the only question.
Hi, well, first of all, we really appreciate you coming and sharing. I think it really encapsulates sort of the symposium theme too, so thank you. And also, we've emailed about you coming. I was thinking about one of the values being accessibility, and I know that right now Detroit is also trying to become designated as an age-friendly community, which is sort of their local and their state and international organizations that sort of do this. So how do you think about accessibility in terms of sort of a place where people want to age well? I'm a gerontologist, so this is sort of the seniors I meet. I'm wondering, one, how have you engaged older adults? And two, sort of, how do you also, in manual and stuff, think about sort of universal design and accessibility, barrier-free stuff?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So inclusive design really grew out of the trend in universal design, and it's taking that one step further. But I would say it is a high priority in Detroit, and I would say even more so in a lot of other cities in the network. Aging is a major concern in Japan, in Scandinavia, a lot of our European countries. And so this question is one that is highly relevant in the network. Right now, I have been working with Maria Luisa Rossi, who is the chair of integrated design at CCS, on a project looking at inclusive mobility. And so we've been working with residents in the Focus Hope neighborhood to understand what mobility means for them, and to start to think about some ways in which design could help to improve mobility there. And so it's one specific example of how we're sort of approaching that and thinking about that. But in general, I think that what we're trying to do is recognize that the current transit systems that we have are not cutting it, the city's communication systems are not cutting it, and we're trying through these smaller interventions to get a sense of how we might be able to approach that. My long-term vision would be that someday I'm giving out design research grants for people to do these types of projects, and we're not there yet, but that is my hope, is that we're able to support more of that type of research and work through this initiative.
Ellie, first of all, thanks for the work you do. You do a great job. I like working with you on projects. So it's interesting. You note that Detroit is the only UNESCO City of Design where the designation is being held essentially by a nonprofit as opposed to the city. And of course, historically, probably for the last half century, the city has been increasingly absent in so many endeavors. And so I'm wondering, at what point would there be a logic to reintegrate that?
So when we initially applied, we had a very loose idea about what we wanted to accomplish, but we really kept it vague, and because most cities take a year or two to develop a more concrete plan after they get the designation. But one of the first things that we thought we wanted was for the city to establish some sort of formal cultural organization or some entity And we realized through the process and listening to people that that's not necessarily what people want. And having grown up in the city myself, I can understand why there are a lot of reasons to be concerned about when the city takes control over something. So I would say we work closely with a lot of partners in city government, and I do think that, our planning department was basically non-existent a few years back, and now they have really become more active. And I think at the end of the day, it's going to be hard to really see major policy change until city government starts to embrace this idea. So my hope is that they do feel a sense of ownership in it, but maybe not necessarily that they own it. So I would like to see it maintained as this partnership among different organizations.
So I want to piggyback on that question because we can see announcements about the smart neighborhoods plan, the walkable, the 20-minute neighborhood plan, basically. How are you guys involved in those discussions? Can you maybe tell us a little bit about what's happening on that front, as well as how inclusive it perhaps really is, the processes on the ground, as opposed to the rhetorical claims of inclusiveness?
Yeah.
Before you answer that, I think it's going to be part of the same answer. So one of the things that struck me about the work you're doing is sort of the intersection of different systems, architecture, the business, getting this street reaction. And then, my question was, it also struck me that there seems to be like individual businesses as opposed to a whole neighborhood. So that's a somewhat similar question.
Yeah, so I would say that we are in touch. So the planning department has a mobility expert. There's the Office of Mobility and Innovation. Through the Office of Public Works, there are, even within city government, there are sort of these siloed efforts that are all working towards the same thing. So if you think, if you think there's a disconnect in the city overall, just go down to Colonial Municipal Center and you wouldn't believe, people just aren't talking to one another. And there is some freedom in us being outside of that system and bringing them to the table with one another, but also with residents and individual businesses at the same time. So our City of Design competition is an example. This year we are giving away 3 $20,000 awards to designers to develop installations that address safety and walkability in Detroit neighborhoods. And this grew out of our conversation with residents at Focus Hope, who said, even with all this new street lights and everything, I still don't feel safe walking around in my neighborhood. So we know, based on our connections with the planning department and with, Caitlin Marcone as the Deputy Director of Complete Streets, we know the city is working long-term on these bigger plans, but we asked ourselves, what could we do in the meantime to sort of test some of these ideas on a smaller scale? And so we had 3 neighborhoods, Focus Hope, Grandmont, Rosedale, and Southwest Detroit, develop briefs about what safety and walkability means in their community. We asked them to pick a site where they might like to see some sort of intervention. And right now we have a call open for designers in Detroit and the network to come and test this out. We did it as a pilot because we know there's no way the city would let us permanently put anything in there. But we also feel like it's a safe way to see, on a small scale, how some of these things can work. And as they're planning these bigger systems, we get to at least, participate in that conversation, and a number of them are on our jury for that. So the hope is that maybe one of those 3 ideas, I forgot to mention, once we give the award and we develop the installation, we're going to install it in the neighborhood, have a 3-month test period, and then residents are going to tell us how effective it actually was. The hope is that maybe one of those ideas could actually turn into something that is scalable, and that the city now sees our local design community as an opportunity to test new ideas and new models. So we support the city's efforts. We try and do what we can to open up the conversation and get more people involved in it, but we're not necessarily waiting for them. We really do believe this idea that, and it's just part of Detroit's culture, is that you don't wait for government to do anything here. If you see a problem in your community, you're going to figure out how to solve it yourself. And what we're trying to do is give people more resources and more support to be able to figure out what that looks like. So I hope I addressed sort of your 2 questions there.
So for the project that I was talking about earlier, for instance, one of my participants was talking about new development in one of the neighborhoods. I'm sorry, but the specific neighborhood escapes me right now. But she mentioned how, there was, I think it was a private developer, of course, was contracted as part of the city's, urban walkable development. And the notice was sent out to residents for the town hall meeting. While, surprise, surprise, the notice was sent out by email. Not a lot of people have email. And then the final paper version was sent out like literally I think 1 day or 2 days before the actual event. Which, as you can imagine, resulted in a lot of like grumbling at what it was supposed to be. There's really no meaningful engagement and discussion on the ground.
Yeah, so like in that situation, our approach is rather than be one more angry person who's pissed off because the city's not functioning well, instead we said, how can we help? And so Mark De Laverne, who's the Chief Innovation and Mobility Officer for the city, was at CCS back in February and hosted a workshop where he basically asked people, how could we communicate better about what's happening in your community? What are the biggest challenges you see? How do we really adequately compensate people for their expertise in these issues? And so we brought in all of the transit activists that we knew, our City of Design partners, our independent professional designers, and students to have this conversation. And for Mark, who's used to being in that town hall scenario where they tell you how it is and then people yell at you, this was like a unique opportunity for him to actually just ask questions and listen. And he said, afterwards, he said, thank you for giving me that platform and that means to communicate with people. So I think it's just about showing a different way to approach it. Did you raise your hand?
No,
Oh, no.
sorry.
Anything else?
So, my question about the neighborhoods, maybe try and get out. So, the idea of urban redevelopment here, like build a big new stadium, and build another big new stadium near it, and then there'll be some restaurants, and that will revitalize downtown. It's like, I just wonder, I think it's too ambitious and unrealistic, but you know, it would be possible to sort of like be realistic, to sort of like take that neighborhood and then target awards and get multiple businesses and synergy, you know, operated into the same area, as opposed to different projects in different areas.
For us to
For
target
you,
a particular
yeah,
neighborhood?
in terms of your awards, as an incentive to build an alternative model of smaller local businesses that are rooted in the community as a model for urban development instead of the massive stadium model, which is really about people driving into the suburbs, spending a little money and then driving out.
Right. I would say we're definitely not components of that.
Yes.
I think that I feel like there is no one neighborhood. I believe this is an idea that can work in any neighborhood, and not just in Detroit, but in any city. And so we're really trying to show the winners we chose were not necessarily the 10 best projects, they were the 10 best role models. So we try to have every type of business see something of themselves in one of the winners. And so it is interesting though, I mean, we work really hard to get the word out outside of the core downtown, but at the end of the day, you still see a lot of applications coming from downtown and midtown. But Montreal, who developed this program, ran it for 20 years. And it's really interesting if you look at the map from year to year, it starts downtown, but by the end of it, they had applications from every single end of the island. And so, you know, I think if you really want to see that development spread everywhere, you know, we're not a neighborhood-based organization. We have many partners that are, and we support them, but our work is really about championing the city more broadly.
Also, I was curious, the first photo from Montreal,
that is from Mylan's neighborhood. Basically, on any day of the year, like there are they just shut down the street all the time. They don't care. Like they constantly have music festivals going on. So this was not even a special event. This was just a Saturday afternoon, and people were hanging out and just like I don't know what it's. I don't know if it's like the Canadian thing or like what, but they just like slow down and enjoy life. They are out in the public space. And the city just does an incredible job of blending the public space, the commercial space, and the residential space really seamlessly.
Yeah, so how do we get that?
What's that?
How do we get that?
Have you ever been down in the alley? Go check out down in the alley.
I was going to say, the city of New York does this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a city.
Right.
I have a question about sort of the relationships with the other cities.
Mm-hmm.
So in the moment where you took 70 Detroiters to Symphonies, who funded that? It's just like one question and sort of a larger, like, since you're not part of the municipal department, like, how do you keep going with this work? And then the second question is, like, you've shown us what you've sort of learned from Montreal. Are there other cities you've learned other things that, you know, piqued your interest, ideas they do?
Sure. So Saint Etienne went above and beyond in inviting us there, and they funded a lot of the programming. They went so far as to like pay venues to have the artists perform there because they made a huge investment in Detroit, and I'm so grateful for that. I will also say that I was a little nervous because oftentimes Detroit gets fetishized in other contexts, or things just get lost in translation. And it was the first time where I went to another city and I felt like people, they understood us. Like Saint Etienne is referred to as the Black City in France. Like they're like, we're the Detroit of France. Like they're always considered like, you know, like not good enough and, you know, have this industrial history too. And so I think that they just have had a lot of the same experiences and a lot of the cities in the network. They're post-industrial cities who are using design to, you know, sort of reimagine themselves. And so I think what's nice is that I feel like we're better understood there than I may be if I go across 8 Mile, you know? So seeing all of these Detroiters there, seeing Detroiters on stage and just hordes of people there worshiping them, when I know that a lot of Detroit musicians do not get the respect that they deserve here in our own city, it was really nice to have that validation abroad. So Saint Etienne has been a city that we have really developed a strong relationship with and are really supportive. But I think there are some other cities in the network as well. Last fall I got to go to Greater Geelong in Australia, which was the furthest away I had ever been from home. But as I was driving into the city and the cab driver was telling me that their mayor had just been convicted of, you know, corruption charges, and I saw the abandoned Ford factory driving in, I was like, gosh, this feels a lot like home for being so far away. And Australia is a place too that doesn't necessarily have the same government support levels that you would see in Europe or in Asia. And so that's a city that I think is really inspiring too. So I think that, you know, there are things to be learned. Again, every city approaches it slightly different. And I think that, you know, we have a lot to learn from other cities, but I think our Detroit model also has a lot to offer in them as well. Any other questions? Siobhan is one of our City of Design partners, and I just want to call her out really quickly. So nice to see you.
Me too. Yeah. Sorry to duck out.
It's been a long day, so I'll wrap up with that. But thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you very much.